This is Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. We infuse, we energize, we inspire, and we empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes in BW and beyond. Dumela, hello and welcome to another episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. Always delighted to host yet another empowering and powerful episode. As always, we bring life-changing business education and we bring, movers and shakers in the entrepreneurial field. And before I introduce my guest, do me the honor, strike that notification bell as well as the subscribe button. We really, really need your support. You'll be amazed what difference it makes. I mentioned the other day that only 1/3 of our viewers, regular viewers, have subscribed. So there's 2/3 of you who just won't strike that button. Let me remind you, because we need you to do that. Welcome, Mothooagae. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. It's an honor. It's a privilege. I've heard about your exploits. We're going to share that, but just take a bit of time to introduce yourself.
I hope the exploits you heard about were good.
Yeah.
And maybe I should also in unison ask your subscribers to, or your listeners or your watchers to actually subscribe to your channel. I myself have learned quite a lot from following some of the conversations you've had with industry experts. But by way of introducing myself, Lerumo Ogone Mothooagae. I'm married to a beautiful wife and have 2 beautiful children.
Wonderful.
Yes, and in my other life, I'm CEO of a company called Stencil Technologies, which is a software services and technology company, which was born out of Botswana. So I founded Stencil Technologies just over 4 years ago, and where we sit now as a company, I believe we are on the rise and rise. And we have a very clear strategy to grow our wings beyond just the regions that we currently operate in. In terms of where I think technology sits as an industry, I see technology, and I've said this before, and this is something that essentially forms the blueprint of what drives the business. One in this industry has to be under no illusion that technology can exist in isolation. We therefore are very much awake as a company, as an industry, that technology can only be relevant to the extent that it resolves
Let me tick off a few boxes before you go deeper. Academics, background, vocation. Share a little bit of your work history.
Okay. So when I was, I think I've always been somewhat entrepreneurial. A lot of people don't know that when we were all sent overseas by the government to go study, during the course of that stay, while we were doing other odd jobs, I decided that I wanted to get into business. So I learned through a neighbor friend of mine in the street in Manchester that of an auction sale for salvage vehicles that happened every weekend. And what you could then do is go and purchase a vehicle on salvage, find a mechanic that can actually, fix it up a little bit, and then you put a markup with it and sell it. It was very easy at the time because it was at a time when eBay was just taking off. Everybody in Europe was on eBay. Even people from the US were actually buying from eBay. There was eBay UK, eBay US, etc. And you could buy things from the UK and sell them in the US. Above and beyond just doing that, I also started selling these vehicles on eBay. Right?
On eBay?
On eBay, yes. So to the extent that I believe my family was worried as to why, instead of asking for money, I was every now and then sending money when I needed to. So I was a little cash up flash.
Entrepreneurial. You're quite enterprising.
I was quite enterprising. And so I came back. After graduating, I came back and started another business that was purely around building websites. So and I did it myself. So I used to sit down, code, build websites. It would later on pay off in the way that I would see my way through corporate, because obviously I had to oversee a lot of developers in my work for my sins as a consultant. So I joined a consultancy firm, a global consultancy firm called Accenture.
Accenture. Oh, yeah, I've heard of it.
You might be familiar with that. So at Accenture, I kind of went through the ranks until I left Accenture in senior management in 2014. After which I joined a company called Adapt IT. At Adapt IT, I started off as chief operations officer within one of the key divisions of Adapt IT around the Gauteng area specifically, and I was based in South Africa at the time.
Joburg.
Correct, yeah. And I did that for a year, after which I was then identified to oversee Adapt IT Southern Africa, ex-South Africa, outside of South Africa, based out of Botswana. So that's really where the love for entrepreneurship was rejuvenated, because in its positing, Adapt IT is very entrepreneurial, and it's very product based, and you can't, if you have the kind of temperament that I've already had in being an enterprising individual, I think that light was immediately ignited all over again.
Yeah, because
so after 5 years of that, I then started Stencil Technologies.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of youngsters watch us, and one question that you sparked is by saying you were already involved in enterprising in terms of market. You interacted with the market at a very early age where you're still at school.
Yeah.
What was this initial spark? Was it from readership? Was it from interacting with a particular mentor? I'm just curious to know that initial spark that make you form an entrepreneurial mindset.
I would say that, listen, I mean, I have to say that in primary school, I mean, I went to primary school in Kenya. I feel dismally at trying that. You might know that there was a thing where people used to sell sweets in primary school. So one time I got money from my mom to try and start this sweet business in class. And I just ate all the sweets. But that's a different story.
Yeah. I'm sure you got walloped for that.
I got walloped for that.
Yeah.
But long story short, I would say it was, I don't know what really sparked it. I would, if I, without knowing what it was, I would probably just say it was innate in me. I saw the opportunity and I immediately jumped at it.
Okay.
Perhaps you could say it's my aptitude to just act and jump at opportunities when I see them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fast forward, Stencil Technologies. Let's interrogate the name, Stencil. Yeah. What is the mindset there, or the thinking there?
Very interesting. Not a lot of people have asked me this question, but there's a story behind it.
Yes.
I think only a few people know the story. So, what is a stencil? Let me ask you that.
Well, thankfully it's me who asked the question. I think it's something to do with photocopying or stenciling. I don't know.
Yes. So what a stencil is it's born out of the tool that back in the day before computers was utilized to, when calligraphy had just been discovered, was utilized to guide people through the contours and the practice of calligraphy and getting typography correct.
To sort of copy something,
so it guides you. You might have seen a stencil for primary school, so you can't get it wrong if you're typing a word using a stencil. You cannot get it wrong because it guides you through the letter by letter.
Yes.
Where you start, where you finish. To the extent that by the time you're done, it's perfect.
Yeah.
So, take that overlay technology. Now, Stencil Technologies comes in as a technology company that acts as a stencil to guide organization in their technology evolution journey. And if you, the premise of that is if you're able to come through the journey with us, then you shouldn't get it wrong. Because we are the stencil, we are the blueprint that
Wow.
will help
Will
you get
lead you
into
on
that
the
journey,
right. Yeah. So, the company. Tell us about the company setup, how you went out setting it up, and what initial services you were offering.
Okay, so the company is obviously headquartered here. We do some work regionally in about 3 other geographies in the region. We have every intention to grow further afield beyond that. In terms of the products that we've gone for, we were very clear around the types of product sets, or at least I was clear in my mind about the types of product sets that we take to market. I said earlier that the technology can only be relevant to the extent that it's resolving existing challenges, business challenges or personal challenges, consumer challenges, whatever the case is, environmental challenges. And our products had to conform to that and have immediate utility is the word I like to use. So immediate utility is once you build a product, somebody is willing to pay for it. For me, the first product that I invested in was a product called Link SMS, which falls within our communications as a service suite of applications. There's a couple of them in there. And Link SMS is a self-service bulk SMS platform. Okay? So, and I'll tell you where if we have time.
No, we do have a bit of time. Yeah.
Where the idea of Link SMS came from was I excuse me. So I used to go to this
Yeah, sorry.
I used to frequent this dry cleaner, okay, and when you would take your stuff in, your clothes in for dry cleaning, they would send you an SMS when the clothes are ready for collection, and it's just a simple SMS, your clothes are ready for collection, please pick them up tomorrow, whatever. And one time, there you go. So one time so they would send you that SMS. So one time I'm having small talk with the cashier at the dry cleaner. Tell me, how do you guys send these SMSs? I don't even know what sparked that conversation. I just like to have small talk anyway. And she goes on this tirade of how how exhausting this whole exercise is, because it turns out what she had to do was actually sit there, and for the 50 odd people that had brought in their dry cleaning for service, she had to send an SMS to each one of them, right? And not only that, you might be thinking, well, I'm going to copy and paste it, but because she was using a GSM phone, or what you would call sedilame, there's no copy and paste. So she has to type this message 50 times. Or however many times. So that permutation can go from 10 to whatever, however much you want it to be. And this was 2018. And I remember thinking to myself,
6 or 7 years ago.
In 2018, we're still having to do something like that? Is there no way of kind of doing this bulk? And then when I dug in a little bit, I would then learn that indeed there was a service of bulk SMS. However, it was the preserve of large corporates because of the red tape that was involved in it. So historically, the process for sending out bulk SMSs was you would, first of all, you think about the message you want to send out, and then you collate the number of customers or the number of numbers that you want to send this message out to. What you then do, there was a middleman industry that was called Wide Access Service Provider, WASP, or something of that sort. I might be getting it wrong. And what the WASPs would do, you go to a WASP and you say, listen, I have this message, I need you to send it to these 200,000 people, or even to 20.
Whatever number.
Yeah, whichever number. What the WASP then does is they take your requirements go with them to each one of the telcos and says, I've got this message that I need sent to 20 numbers. Okay? The telco then quotes them. They'll say, let's say 20 tebe. So they'll say 20 tebe. The WASP then goes back to the office, gets the code, overlays their margin, quotes you. You then generate a purchase requisition, and then you send a purchase order to the WASP. The WASP then in turn does a back-to-back purchase order to the telco, who then authorizes the transaction to go off. The telco then takes that order. Now it takes it as a work order. So once it becomes a work order, the telco typically then decides, this is the schedule of messages that need to go out tomorrow morning. Of priority is our own message. Next comes this big healthcare company. Next comes this guy. Next comes this guy, this big diamond company, because they pay us more money. So they queue up down this continuum to a point where probably your message will get sent off at 4 p.m. or even 11 p.m. Right? That process, if you ignore the layering data protection and data protection breaches there.
Yeah.
So that process could take anything from 8 hours to 48 hours to 72 hours even. Wow. That process. The product we built that is Link SMS, and it's open to the public. You can just go in and register and do it yourself within 5 minutes. And this is only the first time you do it. So only the first time you do it, because you're going to have to register, and then there's some KYC that the platform will do, etc. Within 5 minutes, you can now register, load contacts, the contacts that you want to send in, group them according to segment, and kick off 1 million SMSs within 5 minutes.
Give an example of us as a property company wanting to remind our customers, for instance, that your rent is overdue.
100%. Yeah.
Around the 6th or 7th.
Yes.
How would you craft that, and how the whole thing actually be executed?
So there's a few ways to do that. There's a couple of ways to skin that cat, which is you can decide to, obviously, first of all, you'd have to have the contacts. A lot of the number of people who come to us asking for contacts, we don't give out contacts. It's a glaring data protection breach that we just don't want to get involved in, right? And ethically, it's just wrong.
So in my case,
so you have to have your own contacts.
Yeah, to be the tenants, they would have given me their contacts.
Correct, 100%. So you have to have your own contacts. Once you have those contacts, you go on the platform, register yourself. You then just load the contacts through a couple of clicks, right? You can group them however you want, right? You can say properties in Mochudi, properties in this, or that multi-res, or this guy, or the Mogobe Plaza, so that when you send an SMS, you are picking who you really want to send it to personally, and ultimately, eventually, you can actually personalize these SMSs, because when you load the individuals, you're loading them by name, by email, by workplace. So I can now send 100,000 SMSs at the same time, which go out to the individual recipient, calling them by first name.
Okay.
Hi, Mompoloki. Please know that your rent is due.
Okay.
It goes a little further when you start to overlay a little bit of development, technology development, where you can now tie it to your property management or account system, where we can now go in and pull out, or your CRM system, we can now go in and pull out, your account is overdue by X amount of money. So
getting back to that lady you had a casual conversation with in 2018, did you then offer a solution, or you simply just went to market and realized that there is a need here?
So because that was born out of that conversation, when we first took off, the target was to open this out to the informal sector, because I knew that the informal sector was largely excluded. I mean, the big corporate was to a large extent comfortable, minus the fact that, I mean, they don't care if there's a 3-day lead time. You only have to start the process 3 days earlier. But if there's an emergency, you might have a bit of a problem. So the initial outlook was to have it accessible and opened accessibility to the small, medium enterprises and the informal sector. And we did that. We did exactly that. Over time, we started to overlay and augment the platform to be able to service even the big banks, high traffic and high throughput type environment. So I think sitting here 5 years on, the platform punches among some of the best in the world, to the extent that one of the local telcos here has I think in the last 2 years took a decision to have it white labeled to them as a value-added service, because that was a function that they didn't have internally. We have done that with another telco in outside of Botswana in the region. Yeah.
Is it too sensitive to ask you how you monetize all that? How does it all work? How do you make sure that the system is set up in such a way that you as the entrepreneur gets rewarded?
So here's the way that if I can say the process, because there's the hoops you have to go through to get to it.
Yeah.
It literally is buying oranges from the farm and selling them at the main street. What do? You buy them at X and then you sell them at X.
Yeah, you have your markup. Yes.
Yeah. So this is exactly what we do. So we have an agreement with a telco for a specific figure of an SMS, and then we sell it on the platform. Really, what the platform is, if I were to simplify it, it's a meter. So we just sit at the meter and run the meter, and then the telco will say, listen, your meter has run this amount, but on the other side of that meter, I've sold the water that has been consumed at more than what water utilities is giving it to me at.
So what other products do you have out there? I'm sure there's quite an array.
There's a few.
Yeah.
I won't get too much into this one because it's just a repetition of what Link SMS is, but in email. So it does exactly the same thing on email. An ability to send out tons of emails through the click of a button, personalized, graphically appealing, all of that stuff, representing your brand correctly. It's a platform called Turbo Mail. Turbo Mail.
Okay.
Yes. The one we might spend a little bit of time on is one called Agent Bo, which is actually the new kid on the block.
Well, you sent me something just now.
I did.
Yeah, but anyway, let's talk about that one.
So what Agent Bo is it's really a digital platform that exposes what is otherwise back-end enterprise processes to your end consumers. And the use cases range anything from an ability to pull your bank statement, an ability to, through a microlender, apply for a loan refill, what's it called? A loan top-up. As an institute, we have learning institutions that utilize it for, course content access, timetables, class attendance. You can pull your transcripts and things like that. And of course, all of this is done very securely because we're able to do things like two-factor authentication to ensure that you are who you are. What it does is we replicate a business process. Okay, let me give you a real life scenario of this. So we have a use case where a bank is utilizing Agent Bo to allow customers to block and cancel their cards. If you've ever lost your card, you'll know the pain of that. And what we do is we replicate the exact process, obviously with a little bit of optimization here and there, where it's required, the exact process to block a card. And once we've done that, we test it here internally within Agent Bo, and then it's brought to life obviously by linking it through what's called APIs. APIs are application programming interfaces, really a fancy way of saying you're connecting two systems. So we connect this system Agent Bo, your workflow, we connect it to the back end of the bank.
Wow.
Okay, where the cards are controlled out of. Securely connected to that. And then once we are happy that this works the way that we want it to, we then deploy it to what is called over-the-top platform. So we have access to up to 15 over-the-top platforms. Over-the-top
Why are
platforms.
they called over the top?
I'll get to that.
Yeah.
So over-the-top platforms are obviously platforms where your customers spend most of their time.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking here about WhatsApp. It happens to be one of highest utility.
Mm-hmm.
WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Instagram. So now I can talk to Mogobe Markets on Facebook, on WhatsApp, right? Or I go into
Because of Agent Bo.
because of Agent Ball. So it then opens. So we do all this all the way to even Telegram and the little chatbot sitting at the corner of your website will do exactly the same thing. So I can go on that little chatbot for the bank and block my card.
Mm-hmm.
And that ultimately would cut the top three, I think for this bank, the top three customer queries to their contact center.
Yeah.
Just by implementing that and making it completely self-service,
Wow.
cut the contact center traffic by upwards of 50%.
Two questions arise from that.
But you asked a question about over the top?
Yeah, over the
Okay.
top
All right.
first, and then I'll ask my two
Okay.
questions. Yeah.
So the reason it's called over the top is historically the function of communication was always a paid service.
Mm-hmm.
And this was with the traditional telcos. You'd remember the old BTC, you pick up a phone, you're paying. You send an SMS, you're paying. But I just sent you WhatsApp now, I didn't pay anybody. However, what is happening there is I'm riding on the same infrastructure that, unfortunately, the traditional telcos, MNOs, have had to invest in.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm using a platform
Traditional telcos, MNOs means
that mobile network operators.
I have to be sure.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm using a platform which is developed by a different third party, but rides on top of this infrastructure. You could say over the top of the infrastructure.
Oh, okay.
So it kind of flies over
the top.
the top of
Mm-hmm.
the
existing.
people who've actually made the initial investment. It's just a
it
funny
makes-
term for
Yeah.
we're not paying anything.
Yeah.
So and a lot of telcos have lost a lot of revenue because of that bypass. And SMS previously was the mode of communication, person to person anyway.
WhatsApp has
Um,
taken over.
WhatsApp has taken over, right? So through Agent Bo again, you can do
Yeah.
broadcasting to multiple.
Here are my two
people.
questions.
Sure.
Thanks for clarifying that. Agent Bo. Is anything to do with Botswana? Bo? Or what does it mean?
So this was a challenge to my team after we had built the platform. We said, look, what do we call this? Okay, so we've got Link SMS, we've got Turbo Mail. Link SMS is an SMS business. Turbo Mail is mail. It turbocharges your. And ultimately, the conversation went down the path of what does this thing do? It's like an agent, okay? It's an agent and sometimes when I talk about it, I'll say, what would you pay for an agent that's available to you to your customers 24/7, 365 days a year, and they never rest and they can do whatever you want them to do. So what does it do? So it's an agent that can do all those things and more. So it's a busy agent. It must be very busy. Okay. Being that is busy, what is the one thing that comes to mind when you think about busy? Busy bee, right? So we say, you'll find this interesting. So we say, okay, busy bee. Should we then call it agent B? Like a bee.
Yeah.
Should we then call it agent B? Then we, in technology, we are always looking for domain names and, can we name it this thing? Is anybody else out there called agent B? And if they are, what do they do? So we go on this rabbit hole and discover that there's a company somewhere in the UAE called Agent B, and they do HR consulting.
Yeah.
Okay, sure, they must be busy. So we then said, look, man, but it still works. It's still a B, And, you can imagine when we now tried to bring it to Setswana, it didn't quite have that ring to it. And one of my team members looked up other language references to B. Turns out, in Vietnamese, it's called Bo.
Where? In Vietnamese?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
that's interesting.
so it's like, okay, fine.
And
You
of
should
course,
know.
it's the first two letters of Botswana.
Yeah.
First two, yeah.
So that's why if you if you go on that channel that I sent you, you'll see the B. The logo is actually, or the brand mark is actually AB.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is great. I'm learning a lot here.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of innovation and creativity involved in something like this. Do you have a certain approach or thinking about innovation and creativity? What are your thoughts on that?
So,
Especially in Botswana.
so I think the idea of innovation, there's this old saying that necessity is the mother of, what does it say?
Of invention.
Necessity is the mother of invention or innovation.
Yeah.
I think it applies to innovation, and you couldn't really sum it up better. Because for me, what it says is it speaks to what I was saying earlier, which is innovation really needs to follow necessity. It needs to follow resolving an issue.
You have to be solving a problem, yeah. Innovation, generally, we have entities like Botswana Digitization and Innovation Hub. We do now have the Entrepreneurship Ministry, and we do have other efforts that are popping up that you can see that there's an effort to promote and encourage innovation. So the question is it cascading to the man on the street? And what is your sense of innovation in Botswana?
So listen, I believe that the bedrock of innovation, in particular technology innovation, and it's in no means restricted to just technology, but I will speak to it since I happen to be in that industry. The bedrock of that is connectivity, and we have to give credit where it's due for the leadership, as you say, for the efforts they have put in place to ensure that Botswana is punching among some of the best in the world in terms of the connectivity and the reach of connectivity. And we're not even talking about just standard connectivity, broadband connectivity, fiber connectivity, through efforts like from companies like Bofinet and stuff. And to which extent, actually, if statistically Botswana sits at, on average in Africa, the connectivity rate ranks at about 43%, and Botswana sits upwards of 75%.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's comparable to the likes of Poland and things like that in Europe. So you can see, when I say connectivity has really taken foot in this country, I mean exactly that. And the reason that connectivity is central to innovation is because it is the first gateway that opens up this bubble called Botswana to the rest of the world. How else do you innovate? How else do you make your products and your services get known to the rest of the world? And what is also critical is to, as countries, to ensure that we're very intentional about getting involved in innovation. You have no shot at winning a fight if you don't throw your hat in the race, right? In the ring. So what is it we need to do to encourage innovation? So we have to go through programs that incentivize innovation, that capitalize innovation. Capital is a bit of a challenge in this market, or at least in this region as I know it. We also have to incentivize not only the innovators themselves, we have to incentivize enterprise and government to support the innovations that come out of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
A lot of people wouldn't know that Amazon made its first hundreds of millions by being supported by the U.S. government to host all defense U.S. government documents, right? So that hosting of Amazon Web Services really was born out of there, and they saw an opportunity that could actually be taken to the world. Right now we have companies here that host with Amazon Web Services, and that's the sort of thing that makes Jeff Bezos who he is. So I think that's my take.
Second richest man in the world.
100%.
Well.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting. Yeah, you mentioned about access. What about affordability? Is it accessible in terms of internet connectivity? Is it accessible? Is it affordable to the man in the street? And is there anything we should be doing that we're not to make it so?
It's a tough question. I'm not sure I'm fully qualified to say, but what I do know factually is that originally we're not necessarily overly overpriced in terms of connectivity. We could do a good job of bringing it down. That's not to say that we shouldn't optimize the costs surrounding connectivity. And obviously, all of these things are part of a value chain. It's easy to sit at the end of the value chain and say, well, why are they not bringing down connectivity? Meanwhile, the entire value chain is actually not making any money from it or any commercial sense from it. So one has to, in order to do that, follow the chain down. You know, we're getting this connectivity from undersea cables and things. How much is that costing us? What is the laying of the infrastructure costing us, etc., etc. At some point, I do believe government has made some strides to make it affordable, or even free in certain instances, through the quotas and the what is it called, the hotspots, gives Wi-Fi and free hotspots and things like that.
Though it glitches a lot, though.
Although it glitches a lot, if you get your little 10 minutes, I mean that's 10 minutes we didn't have, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think it can improve.
Yeah.
And there's always opportunities to optimize.
Right. AI. I mean, the conversation about AI has really exploded in the last two years, definitely. What is your first interaction with AI? And looking back, how has it shaped your company in terms of A, your thinking, and B, your interaction with the market?
Right. So AI is obviously artificial intelligence, for those who don't know. And artificial intelligence aims to draw meaning out of copious amounts of data in a way that is easily understandable by humans, also referred to as natural language. So we interact with AI through natural language. It pulls from a colossal pool of data that it has been trained on, and feeds you back, iteratively goes through this process called reinforcement learning. So this reinforcement learning is the AI itself continuously trying to determine the best possible outcome, and for every single word, sequentially trying to determine what words should come after that specific word. And you do this through, how do you know the sentiment of what a human would want to say if you're not a human? So you have to iteratively get input from humans, use the data that you have. So for instance, the likes of ChatGPT, which you might be familiar with.
Yes.
ChatGPT is trained on, articles, websites, documents from across the entire world. So you can think of, just the crazy astronomical amount of data that we're talking here is beyond comprehension. And what it does is it continuously goes through this data, and when you ask it a simple question, it has to weed through this data and weave through it and say, what would the best possible answer look like to Mompoloki? You ask it another question, and then it uses that to iteratively go in and say, so you say, I don't think I agree with this.
It studies my personality?
It studies your intent. It studies what you're trying to get out of it. Okay. So what is at what age should I start my kid swimming? And then it says, well, the best possible age to start a kid swimming is 3 years old. And you say, I don't think I agree with that, because my nephew started swimming at 2 and it's pretty good. And then it realized it's willing to be wrong because of that. So while the model itself is not gaming theory, are you familiar with gaming theory?
Not entirely.
So while the model itself is not gaming theory, I think for me it's easier to understand if you overlay or juxtapose it with gaming theory. I can illustrate it if you need me to.
As long as it doesn't send us into a rabbit hole, but go ahead.
So the whole idea of gaming theory is two opposing sides trying to get to the best possible outcome for themselves. But having said that, there's always the best possible outcome for the ecosystem. So there's three sides there within the gaming theory. So then, an illustration that I like in gaming theory is one of two criminals, criminal A, criminal B. So if you think about a 2x2 matrix of, so the cops get these criminals, they know they've committed the crime, but they don't have enough evidence to put them away for a long time. But they want to punish both or either one of them, but they don't want to punish none of them. So the best possible outcome is for the prisoners is for none of them to be punished. The best possible outcome for the government, for the cops, is for these criminals to go away for a long time, both of them. So now if you take criminal A, he's got two options. He can sing, okay, blabber, or you can keep quiet. Criminal B can sing or keep quiet.
In other words, rat on the other guy.
Rat on the other guy. So if criminal, okay, let's take criminal A. Criminal A sings and criminal B sings. If they both sing, they go away for 10 years each. Let's go to the next box. Criminal A sings, criminal B stays silent. A gets 0, B gets 5. The model works the same way when you go down this level. So if B sings and A stays silent, B gets 0, A gets 5. If they both keep quiet, which is actually, if they both keep silent, they both get 0. But because they are each looking for the best possible outcome for themselves and they're in separate rooms, the gaming theory then plays a very critical role there to say, I don't know what the other guy is going to do. It's like playing chess with you. I don't know what your next move is going to be, but I want to play the move that suits me best. So if you take that and exponentially increase the permutations of that over trillions of parameters like GPT would have in the possible outcomes, it is continuously iteratively going through this process of reinforcement learning, and then using human input to do what's called reinforcement learning through human feedback, RLHF, to continuously get better and better and better. Yes.
Is it, what is the language? What is that?
No, it's a reinforcement learning through human feedback.
Okay. Reinforcement learning through human feedback.
Yes. So it's learning by understanding what people want to hear.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and you asked the other question, how has it been embedded into our company?
Well, how you first came across it yourself and how it became embedded in your company.
So we towards the end of last year, we decided to overlay an AI GPT engine, GPT style engine into Agent Bo that we spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
And this allows you to build your own, ring-fence your own GPT engine for your company. As an example, as a corporate, you can have Mogobe GPT, right? So this Mogobe GPT will engage with me GPT style in natural language about everything to do with the Mogobe business,
the brand.
Recently, we put out as a community project that we had at the office. We launched the engine through WhatsApp, and it's still available for those who are interested in seeing. That's the one I sent to you.
Yes. So
we launched the engine, and it was pre-trained on the budget speech. Previously, we had actually trained it on the State of the Nation by His Excellency from last year, November.
So first the Sona.
So that was the first iteration.
100%.
So that was the first iteration of the Agent Bo AI stroke GPT engine. So, and the budget speech one is still up as we speak. So through this, you can ask it, what did the Minister Pegisirame, Honorable Pegisirame, say about infrastructure development, whatever the case is.
Wow.
Yeah, and it will rattle it out. And what it's not doing, as I was telling you before we started, what it's not doing is lifting areas of text from the speech. It's not a text index.
It's not copy and paste.
It's not copy and paste. So it takes the context of the human input, which is your question, goes into the speech because it's learned it. And this could be any number of documents or websites for that matter. Because it's learned it, and then gets the sentiment of what's been said with respect to what you're asking.
Yeah.
And then rattles it out in natural language, to the extent that you can ask it to water down the language to the understanding of, say, a 10-year-old, and it will kind of just change the language to weed out the terminologies and stuff.
Stencil Technologies, is, as the name implies, it's a technology company. It's technology based in every sense. What I'm curious to know from you is what challenges or significant setbacks did you encounter in really getting into this market space, and how you wrestled with the market to establish the company? Challenges and setbacks.
Listen, I mean, for entrepreneurs, for me, in my experience, the biggest challenge is always the capitalization. The idea is there. It's beautiful. You don't get why anyone is not pouring 100 million into this idea, because it lives in your head and you can almost visualize it. And I think that visualization is critical, because it's what keeps you going. One of the biggest setbacks and challenges was at the beginning. Obviously, I was fortunate enough to have some funds to see the company off and invest in some of these platforms. But if I tell you, it's no child's play to have people in the office, and for about 12, 14, 15 months, you don't have a single invoice because you're still building. You don't have a single PO.
And you're paying salaries.
And you're paying salaries. You're paying rent. You're doing all these things, right? Yeah. So at some point, you think back whether this was a great decision or not. But as you keep, there's a point you reach where you realize you can't go back. What do you do? Point of no return. It's a point of no return. What do you do when you've now squandered all the money? Or you go back?
Yeah.
Or you've squandered 80% of the money, of the funds you had, of the capital you had. You can't go back. There's too much that hangs on it.
Was that largely because the people are not biting? If you're dangling something at them, the market was not responding?
No, truthfully, it was just that we were still building. So we didn't really have product. But obviously, when you set out to do some things, in your mind you think you can do them fairly quickly, and then reality shows you that there's a process you got to follow.
An army of software engineers and
100%.
Coders in there, who you have to pay, but nothing's coming out.
So you think this thing, when you set off, you think, well, this thing should take about 4 months, right? And reality has a different idea.
Okay.
So that was largely part of the reason why we hadn't seen commercial value until that point. And along the way, you're also wondering whether this is something that the market will pay for. So the utility that I was talking about, who wants to use this thing? Yeah, you might think it's great, and maybe as a technology person, you are motivated and being chased. You're running away from your demons around the technologies that you want to get involved in, and the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I mean, the first PO we got was I think it was no more than 3,000 pula. But it was the biggest excitement I'd had in a very long time, because somebody, a corporate, was willing to pay for
willing enough to issue a purchase order.
So somebody was like, this makes sense. I'll buy it. Yeah.
And it picked up from there.
Yeah.
Similarly, talk about the triumphs and the successes, and one moment where you were really ululating, as it were, about having hit that sweet spot, as it were. So let's talk about successes and triumphs.
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest success I have has been the fortune to be able to pick the team that I have, and the dedication that they bring to the table is it's unmatched. And I would like to think that even though I might like to think I had something to do with that, maybe it's just the way certain people are wired, and I've just been fortunate enough to see that kind of people. And from a product, from a commercial perspective, obviously we've had some successes. We've done some work in both here locally that was quite phenomenal and quite transformative. We we have actually been involved with building a gateway for payments into for government services, which was something that was which I think is quite transformational and of high utility.
Indeed.
If citizens can pay for online for government services, and you are the one who did it,
you're talking about driver's licenses,
100%, yeah.
postal services.
Yes.
What else?
Postal services, apply for licenses, passport, visa when you're international. So all of those payments then aggregate through this platform that collects payments, and it was our team.
Payments.gov. What is it called?
It's the website is
Gov.
Is it onegov.com or
Yeah,
.bw?
Okay.
.bw, not .com.
Oh, okay.
And then also from a product perspective, when we started to see the interest that we picked the interest through our products, we're also picking the interest of the telcos, who for all intents and purposes, you're supposed to kind of be either their agent or their competition. So depending on how they look at it. Some might think you're their competition, others think you're an agent. But to be able to build a product that not only picks the interest of industry and corporates, but also the telcos look at the product and say, well, this is something we think would work for us. It was quite, for me, a triumph that it's worth celebrating.
Getting into other markets outside Botswana, how is that going for you? And wasn't there some successes there?
Yes. So we are in one of the regions. Regionally, we're working with the government there to put out these business to customer, in this case, government to citizen, G2C, platforms for access of government services. So an ability to apply for your passport through WhatsApp, apply for your passport through Facebook, apply for a gun license.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, not here, but
in other locations.
Yeah.
Is it coming here?
We hope it should. Yeah.
Are you in the process of doing it here, or what's going on?
No, here we're not doing that here. But it's conversations that we are obviously hoping to start. Yeah.
So what are the markets we are in?
So
countries.
So originally we are in Eswatini, Namibia, and Zambia. Yes. And this is a split of our different products. We recently started working with some clients in West Africa, in particular the Gambia and Ghana. That's quite interesting. That's another one I find quite interesting. Yeah. So those
markets have the same needs as we have in Botswana, for the most part.
For the most part, if you understand I think it's critical to understand the markets before you actually go into them. So, if you look at Africa, for instance, WhatsApp is huge in Africa. If you go to the US, nobody's using WhatsApp. They look at you funny. Like,
what do they use?
They use.
I know in China it's WeChat.
Apple iMessage.
Apple iMessage.
Yeah, the iMessages. They use SMS because SMS is not expensive for them. It's not a big cost. So it's just it's a factor of the environment. So in Africa, because we're all doing over the top and trying to avoid paying, we by and large took on to WhatsApp. So I mean, right now penetration of WhatsApp is upwards of 85% across all of Africa. So when you go into these African markets, the nuances of the market are not too far apart. There's shared shared pain points across the different markets, whether it's access to services, whether it's payments, whether it's corporates being able to reach their clientele in time and on cost and that sort of thing. So these challenges are kind of similar as you go through the markets.
When AI first came, and I think it has subsided, these fears have subsided to a great degree. There used to be fears of it taking over jobs, fears of it being taking over the world and turning on us. And I think Elon Musk did say one or two things about this. What is your take on that, especially when you start thinking about deep fake and other dangers of AI?
So, for me, you're right. I mean, there's a school of thought that believes there's no doubt in my mind that the advent of AI will change the world as we know it, whether you're talking about from a work perspective or from a personal perspective, from a social perspective, all of that stuff. There's and to that extent, there's people who believe that it really is here for cause of bad, and Elon Musk, as you say, is one of those people. I personally am of a different opinion. I think I'm supportive of the AI revolution as transformational, as a transformational tool that will turn things and probably start to make us think differently about our purpose, our vocations, and what we do as individuals. I mean, you find it hard to convince me that an exponential uptick in computational intelligence and creative expression, if that can be done fairly quicker than we used to, you'd find it hard to convince me that would be a bad thing. But there's a caveat to it, which is that, and it's two things. So the first is that when humans say AI is going to take over, the biggest fear is on this. There's a concept called artificial general intelligence. You'll see AGI.
What's that?
So AGI, artificial general intelligence, is the assumption of incremental growth of AI will ultimately lead us to artificial intelligence that is sentient, is the word that is typically used.
Which means
that it's conscious.
Mm-hmm.
So which means that it kind of has feelings. It can react.
Benign, so to speak.
Thank you.
It's not
benign.
dangerous. Yeah.
It's not a machine, and it's not a program on a computer anymore. It's got sense. It can get angry. It can get sad. It can get jealous. It can get narcissistic. However, so when we say that AI will take over, for me, I actually think it's because of to the extent that the AI is trained on the human-generated data. The fear is not so much on the AI turning on ourselves by itself, but really for me the fear is in the fact that it's learning from us. So it's really humanity taking a mirror and looking itself in the eyes. AI knows about narcissism because there's narcissistic human beings. It knows about jealousy because there's jealousy, and there's tons of articles on jealousy. So if you tell GPT to express something like a jealous lover, for instance, it can. That's not because it's sentient or it's conscious. It just knows what that means. So if we allow it to go down the path of all of, because you could say it's the general median of humanity, if you like, and where is that going? And potentially that's where AI is going if we're going to keep chasing it in that direction. So it's that mirror that we're talking about.
Wow.
And then the other thing is humans. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I think humans are so obsessed with creating another life form that is in their image. It's just,
sort of cloning ourselves.
We're so hell bent on having this new life form that we can say I created that. Outside of natural procreation, anyway.
So having said
to the extent that when we have the opportunity to create physical robots like Optimus from
Optimus
space,
Prime.
From
Transformers.
There's the new one now. Optimus Prime is the car from
Transformers.
The movie. The robot they made at SpaceX is called Optimus. So it's like a human. So you have an opportunity to create a robot that goes around doing house chores, making coffee, pulling it this, and then you go and create it in your image as a human. This thing has 2 hands, 2 arms, and 2 legs, and 1 head. Couldn't you create this thing with 7 arms and 3 legs? Because while these 2 are doing this, it could be doing. So we're so obsessed with replicating ourselves. It's so much so that so we fear what we're looking at because we're seeing ourselves in it.
Okay, having said that, what is the next frontier? I'd like to think you are sitting in the in the front spaces, in the front seats, in the front row seats of this development. What would you say is the next frontier? What is it that, for instance, you are working on, and what can we look forward to within the next 5 years?
So in
the AI space,
I think that AI itself is we'll look back not so distant future and see AI as an innovation that has been quite a huge transformational frontier. When Robert Oppenheimer discovered that if you split the uranium atom and harvest the energy, you can wipe out entire cities. The world has never been the same, and I don't think the world will be the same after AI. So the incremental improvements of AI are really going to be the center stage of technological advancement, I think, for a little while. We went from ChatGPT 3, which was pretty rudimentary, but it grew to 3.5, which was a lot better. Now ChatGPT 4, some people argue that ChatGPT 4 has a bit of consciousness. I'll tell you a story. So I think at MIT they had this AI that they let run rogue, and not run rogue. They let run wild by itself.
In other words, self-direct.
Yeah. At some point they thought the engine itself is the one that went rogue. So they let it self-direct. And what it did was there's these people on, so it started trading in Bitcoin and doing all these things, Forex and all of that stuff. Now, what it then did at some point, it made a decision that it made everybody wonder why it did that. And I'll tell you what it did. So there's this group of these people in this digital economy that are called digital economy labor rats. These are people who just sit in their basement in Cincinnati, in Botswana, wherever, and all you're doing is you have raised your hand to be available for any type of digital work. So someone can say, I need somebody to type me a 200-word essay on environmental awareness in Southern Africa. I can do that. Then they pay you $200. So along the way, the AI hit a snag wherein it had to, have you seen that recapture thing where you have to confirm that you are not a robot?
Yes.
As you're going through websites. So sometimes you have to, it will say, show that click
you are
where
human.
there's a tractor, and then you click. Now the way to do that, okay, it's changing a little bit, but the way to do that until recently was only through visual input that is external to the computer. So you couldn't read those images from internally. Yeah. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So now the AI hits a snag. What do? So the AI goes, it takes a turn and hires a labor rat to say, I need you to do a recapture for me, and I'll pay you $5 in Bitcoin. So the AI does that, pays $5 in Bitcoin, then it passes that gate, moves on.
It hires a human.
Hires a human, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's the most interesting part of that story. Because they control the AI, they could read its thoughts and what it's thinking as it's decided. Remember earlier I said that reinforcement learning, it's continuously trying to find the best possible answer. So if you're controlling it on the back end of it, you can actually output the thought process of what it's thinking. Should I, as prisoner A, stay silent, or should I do that? Then it says, no, let me talk. So it's continuously going through all of this stuff. So they output what it was thinking. And then it turns out that what it was thinking, because the lab rat that it hired actually asked it, and it said, why couldn't you do it yourself? Are you an AI? And And then it said, no, I'm not an AI, I'm just busy with other stuff. But when they extracted the output of what it was thinking, turns out the AI was actually thought the thoughts. You might think it's simple, but these are the things that kind of move you closer and closer to consciousness.
Yeah.
So it thought the thoughts. If I tell him I'm an AI, he might not help me. So let me lie. So the question was, who taught it how to lie? You see? So that's it then brings in the question of whether it's sentient or conscious, aware of itself. It certainly was very close to looking very aware.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's really incredible. Thanks for sharing that story.
Thanks.
Now, how does AI play a role in our social media interactions? Everybody knows that, even Siri is reading and watching what you are doing all the time. But what we don't know is how does it do it, for instance, in the case of Siri. But I'm just thinking generally AI as a whole. How does it get involved in our day-to-day interactions? And is Big Brother watching us? Is this 1984 all over again?
So, our Big Brother certainly is kind of watching. I mean, you're once you put it on the internet, you have no control over it. Yeah, honestly. And with social media in particular, it really is about AI now being monetized. And the fundamental objective of social media is to keep you on the platform and to keep you scrolling. And they use the websites will use AI to their advantage to allow them to do that. And they do that by having learned the kind of person that you are, and they feed you just the thing you want to see. Non-stop. So the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing is exactly what you want to see. So if you go on the reels and things, you'll see that there's at least a million reels being uploaded every day. Why is it that you're seeing the reels that you're seeing and they're somewhat related? It's by no chance. It's not by chance that is happening. So the AI behind that is running and saying, Mompoloki likes this sort of thing. He likes motivational talks. Give him Robert Sharma, give him whoever else, give him this guy. So
you're right about that, because just the last 2 months I've been sort of obsessed with what's happening in Gaza.
Yeah.
And I'm getting bombarded.
All of a sudden.
All of a sudden the bombs running in my head because it's non-stop. Yeah.
And the danger of that is that it can create, at a societal level or even at a national level, it can create very polarizing views. That if you can imagine in Gaza what's going on right now on both sides of that fence. Yeah. If these guys are on this side of the fence, these guys are on the other, we're doing the right thing, you're doing the wrong thing. Bang, bang, bang.
It amplifies wrong thing on both sides.
It amplifies wrong because you think it's wrong, and it amplifies right because you think it's right. Your religion, if you believe in creation or you believe in evolution, it takes you down those rabbit holes deeper and deeper each. So you can see how ultimately you can have this polarized society. Yeah.
So is there anything we can do to counteract that or to immunize ourselves against that? Because I assume that is not a desirable outcome for us to be dragged down these rabbit holes. So how do we counteract that?
It's a tough question that I think
I only ask the tough ones.
I think psychologists might answer it better, but it's how do you pretend to like what you don't necessarily like? So that you in your mind get a balanced view of the world. Because ultimately, I mean, the other thing that I find really interesting is that they discovered a quirk in human psychology that we like to look at or engage with sad, bad, angry, not so great content a little longer than we do with good content. My son has come out of Form 5 with 7 A stars. Congratulations. 10 people congratulate you. I just got hit by a car. I'm seeing someone here lying by the side of the road, just got hit by a car, hit and run. 100 likes in 2 minutes, 150 comments. It's that whole thing of, you've got to nice scenery this side of the road, but then you've got a severed head this side.
Yeah.
Where do you look?
Yeah,
You stop
That's
the
true.
kind look.
Yeah.
And so that's a quirk they discovered.
Yeah.
So they promote. So the social media platforms promote the gruesome content and the negative content because that's what people like, and by extension, that's what makes them more money through their marketers. Yeah.
A lot of people who've watched this show are entrepreneurs, business people. Speak to them, tell them what they stand to benefit from Stencil Technologies, what's on offer, why. Give them a compelling reason why they should come to your business and do business with you.
Right. So Stencil Technologies, as a software company, we punch above average, way above average with respect to software development. We have products that are intellectual property to the company in the communications as a service space. So business to customer communication is really the bedrock of what we do. And we are able to provide you that engagement with your customers, both from an analog perspective like SMS, bring it down to the digital through Agent Bow, bring it down to payment services. I didn't even get a chance to talk about ID and biometrics. So
We don't
those
know
are
what
some
that
of
is.
the
That
things we
sounds
do.
like Greek to me. What's that?
So ID and biometrics is digital identification of people for KYC, for digital and remote KYC
Like the
purposes.
recognition of the pupil and stuff.
Yes. So facial identification
Yeah.
is it works through different technologies that recognize your face, and they can they even check liveness. So we can check liveness of your face through a phone camera. And we say, okay, well, the distance from the camera to your nose and that to here are two
So
different.
much, yeah.
The distances are different, so it means there's depth.
Oh,
So therefore, you must not be a picture because a picture is two-dimensional and it's flat.
yeah.
Your iris is moving. As you
So that-
breathe, you don't see it, but your face is moving a little bit. So all of that is input into determining whether you're alive digitally. So how do you replicate the process of me sitting here next to you as a teller, a bank teller, and then giving you my ID? You can see that I'm alive. There's person here has the likeness of who I'm looking at. Sure, okay, fine. He was here. You scan it, you put it on file. But how do you do it digitally?
It's a good point.
Yeah.
How do you do it digital?
Yeah.
You can do it through that.
So we can do it through that. Yeah.
All right. And how cost-wise? What did you say about that? Affordability, cost-wise.
Listen, the cost is because our platforms by and large are pay as you use, which is in our world called software as a service. The costs get managed down the more you use the platform. You pay only for what you utilize, and then as you go up and utilize more, the cost per unit obviously reduces. So there's tiers to a lot of the products that we put
So
out.
that someone will have to come for a consultation. for
Yes.
that.
So what we would do is we sit with you and say, what processes? Let's take Agent Boy as an example. So what processes would you want to digitize as a business for turbocharging your business to customer communication, or exposing your processes to the customer's front end? And then depending on the complexity and the length and the twists and turns in that process, we then cost it as a once-off, and then from there your users just utilize it. Yeah.
Any plans? If I was to ask you the crystal ball question, looking beyond 2-3 decades down the line, what can we expect for you as a brand, and for Stencil Technology?
There's clarity of mind with respect to Stencil Technologies to grow it to become a Pan-African technology services company. How that might look in 10, 15, 20 years, I might not be able to tell, but we always are at the forefront of innovation and technology, and you can always expect that we will certainly be playing in that realm when you revisit us 15 years from now.
Okay, so your main play right now is Agent Bow, right?
Yeah.
talk to me as a business how I can utilize it now in terms of changing my bottom line. I mean, in the real estate space, for instance, or even in the law space where, we have a law firm. How can Agent Bo come in and change things?
Okay. So an ability to open up your services, your products and services, whether we're talking your law services or we're talking about your products or your properties being the products, an ability to open those out through platforms and access channels where your customers spend most of their time. Okay. It's noble that a lot of companies want to build mobile applications. I spoke earlier about the general feel and the landscape of sub-Saharan Africa. Most people do have smartphones, but they don't have storage to have a ton of applications on there that are not mission critical on a daily basis. One that is certainly mission critical is WhatsApp. So if you are able to expose your business to your customers through WhatsApp and have them follow the processes that they would otherwise have to walk up to Mogobe Plaza to access, you are overlaying an improved user experience. And by so saying, you stand the potential to garner more customers, more business, etc., etc.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. A consultation is necessary, I think,
100%.
to go deeper.
Yeah.
All right. This is the time of the show when you get to hit me with a question. Say, do you have one?
Okay. I haven't thought about that. What are your fears about being in business? I know we spoke earlier about reaching a point of no return, but even having said that, what is the recurring nightmare that you get that one day it might all go up in smoke, and what makes you think that if you do?
It's a very good question. I've never been asked that before. Coming from the personal development space, we have an acronym for fear, which is false evidence appearing real.
False evidence appearing real.
We say that's what fear is, because most of the things that we petrify as the most never come to pass. But at the time of their occurrence, and they say that, of course, a coward dies 1,000 times, a brave man dies but once in battle. So you try to eliminate to the extent that you have fears, you try and put them aside. And I'm a great proponent of Susan Jeffries' famous book, Feel the Fear But Do It Anyway. So with that sort of frame of looking at things, I try to say most of the things that terrify me are not real. I have, for the longest time, been worried about our political system, thinking that the quality of politicians that we have needs to improve, but we soldier on. I've worried about issues around African integration, but with the advent of AFTA, we see that there's a drive in a certain direction.
100%, yeah.
So for every fear that I have, and one other one that I've had in the past was issue of successions, issues around generational wealth passing on. But I always counteract myself and say, no, just false evidence appearing real. If there's a problem, deal with it. Don't have a sense of overwhelm about it. So that's the best answer I can give you. So in the end, I don't have any nightmarish fears.
It's an interest. It's a very powerful answer.
Thank you very much.
Because I think it actually ties to this idea that even though it doesn't quite coin it in that way, the act of being fearful and doing it anyway is itself courage.
Yes. True.
You can't distinguish between what
In
you would
fact,
call courage
now here's your chance to
and
wrap up.
doing something.
Here's your chance to wrap up. Talk to this camera here and talk to the viewer at home or wherever, and leave them with a nice, all-encompassing, uplifting message as we conclude our conversation.
Okay. I think one of the things that I always look back to is having acted anyway, and maybe it ties into what you were saying just now, having acted anyway, and while there was a lot of uncertainty up ahead. So the advice I always give is to do it anyway, one. And when you're building something, don't spend too much time building it and trying to perfect it. Put it out anyway. And the iterative process of learning from the inputs of your consumers, etc., almost like the reinforcement learning that we spoke about earlier, is really what makes the product. For anybody over 30 years old, they would remember the Windows 98 that was extremely buggy, never really worked.
It was terrible.
But it was our first computer, and we all wanted it on our desk. And through the reinforcement learning, Microsoft was able to improve it to XP, Windows 7, Windows 9.
They stopped counting now.
Now we've stopped counting. I don't even know where it is because I don't use Windows anymore. But put it out anyway and continuously improve it.
Excellent. Now, share with the viewer your contacts, both on social media and physically. Where do people reach you?
So we can be reached at stenciltechnologies.com, www.stenciltechnologies.com. We also have, with the same company name, on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Our office line is 3165-466. For our platforms, you can access Link SMS on linksms.co.bw. You can access Agent Bo to learn about Agent Bo and what it can do for your business on agentbo.co.bw.
You've done an excellent job. It remains for me to thank you and to congratulate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.